neither very big nor terribly small, quite often time-worn but never predictable, somewhere in the middle are we. Fragile, resilient, and unbearably impenetrable we humans. Boldly we stride through time, the past ground up beneath our feet. A valiant few dare turn around. Here we stand, poised on the brink of the unknown. What a marvelous vista it is. From as far as the eye can see to the very footprints on which we stand, we are witness to the march of history. I have no pretensions of proposing a single correct method to monitor humanity's past. Instead, let me present various methods from which you can observe history's tradition and eventually blaze your own trail. History arrived through virgin birth, for it knew no mortal mother, from the bowels of Herodotus in 450 BC, BCE for those revisionists among you. Sneeringly, many claim Herodotus sired twins, as is known to be the father of lies as well. Since history's notorious arrival, questions about its precise nature have emerged. Let us pause here to devein our terms. Few will argue that history is a story about ideas that link past to present in a kind of conversation. Venture anything more specific, and the dark, filthy line of controversy comes to light. Certain individuals characterize history as simply an account of what has happened. Some see history as rumor transcribed, and still others consider it to be a heap of useless facts, one damn thing after another, or, as the great Gibbon would say, little more than the organ of hatred or flattery. And then there's the bilious old chestnut that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If history has an echo, could it be the echo of historians repeating each other? This, however, is doubtful, as historians seem to agree on nothing. Even their intellectual moorings are embattled. Enter the cool, gleaming blades of isms. There are endless varieties of histories to choose from. Classicism, capitalism, militarism, materialism, Orientalism, Marxism, structuralism, Afrocentrism, postmodernism, industrialism, fascism, feminism, queerism, romanticism, nationalism, revisionism, French, and so on. In the end, though, to wield an ism, one must don a surgeon's garb, for such blatant subjectivity amputates reality. We could view history as an objective science. The problem here is how to base a science on something based on human capriciousness and folly. Science demands that facts be verifiable through repeatable experiments. Under such conditions, there is no choice, just a series of happenings, none more important than the other. Objectivity? Can it be? The framing apparatus itself reflects choice. At some point, most historians conclude judgment must be passed. Perhaps it's more useful to ask what history should be. Even here we can find no concordance. Puerile types would have history be a moral discipline to reflect a moral universe. A savvier sampling recognizes its destructive nature, cleansing mankind's mythical visions of the past. Could such violent means damage the past? Hardly. The past refuses to die. It's not even past. Did you know, in French, the past historic exists only in writing? Perhaps it did exist, but it does not exist. Similarly, the present must be called into question. On reflection, it can't exist. If you examine time closely, each quantum moment must fall on one side of the divide or the other, with the divide between that which has happened and that which will happen. Nothing is fixed. At the risk of spatializing history, founding it on the concept of time is like building architecture on an escalator. I mean, just try digging a foundation on an escalator. It can't be done. Furthermore, even if there is a past, history is falsified by everyone. I mean, let's face it, memory's malleable, even in personal history. Getting at a single truth is out of the question. The best we can do is to pick through the varying degrees of plausibility. So, how does history differ from fiction, you might ask? You do very well to put away any idea of primary sources coming to the rescue. Primary sources aren't even primary. They come from brains shaped by parents and further twisted by culture and country. By the time the experience gets done rattling through the revision chamber that is our heads, it's been so manipulated that what's finally excreted is unrecognizable. Even the most seasoned, reasoned brains can't accurately inventory reality. Of course, this reduces history to sheer narrative. Perhaps it would help to distinguish between history, and history, capital H, and history, lowercase h. And don't forget, history sans serif, bold, italic, lisp, enye, umlaut. In other words, are we talking about history, or history as in the subject, history? There's history versus historicism. History is compared to the historiography of history. There's history's historicity. The histrionics of history, the historical versus the hysterical, and the purging of all history through hysterectomy, which is not to be confused with hysterectomy with a Y, which apparently involves non-metaphorical wombs. However, it must be remembered that this is not a debate of actual history, but narrative interpretations of the past, wherein is located the pastness of the past. Now, the pastness of the past is never a true past, but rather passes itself off as the passage between the unknown and the now. Nevertheless, to even get at this pastness, one must break through a thick crust, not part of the past, but ossified layers of interpretations of the past. So, how many histories are there? One? None? Or ad nauseum? No matter how many histories we add to our arsenal, there's still much we don't know. The problem of not knowing is eclipsed by the even greater crime of not knowing what we don't know. What if the one thing that is not passed on from one generation to the next is indeed the defining force of culture? How do we search for these lacunae? The same way we look for black holes as they suck surrounding matter into their weighty abyss? By searching for the holes and pull on society? With each passing moment, more history escapes our grasp, and our own story is in danger of being uninterpreted, tossed off upon the great dust heap of history. Then again, are these gaps truly damaging? Perhaps we become overly concerned about history's holes. If history could contain everything, it would tell us nothing. If we knew everything, we'd be immobilized. Oh. brains can manage a choice between 4 or 5 things. Give it a million things to choose from, and it's no choice at all. It's forgetfulness that keeps us going. While it's true that some things must be sacrificed for history to be of any use, we've yet to define what exactly is history's purpose. Why look at history at all? We're modern, forward-looking men. What do we need from the past? What does Seneca have to say about choosing a tailor for a bespoke suit? Nihil. And what has the Venerable Bede to say about which is better, a vacation home in Bermuda or the French Caribbean? Navit. And so begs the question, do we actually need history? What has history done for us? Bring order to chaos, chaos to order? Does it comfort us? Does history teach us any lessons? Can it be trusted? And what have lessons learned from history? Do they exist? Perhaps, as Abba Eban said, history teaches us that men and nations behave wisely only when they've exhausted all other alternatives. A dreadful thought. A long-standing schism in the field of history concerns the role of the individual and the individual's ability to affect history. Many argue that the concept of making history is null, as if history was something to be made and not something one stumbles upon. In the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, Karl Marx wrote, "Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under circumstances chosen by themselves, but under circumstances directly found, given, and transmitted by the past." He actually implies that the upper classes inherit their privilege historically, instead of the more level-headed view that they're entitled to it as a result of the highly discriminating culling blade of meritocracy. It is part of the warp and woof of life that the poor do not appear in history. As the African proverb says, until lions have their historians, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Is it so very surprising, then, that the brilliant few will be valorized over the many? One cannot change the past. To think one can demonstrates a fragility of mind. It's a frightfully blooming and buzzing history, and we're nowhere near the end of it. So it's vital to make a proper study of it. If we historical men, we privileged few, can focus our eyes unbreakingly on our subject, it is bound to relinquish its secrets. In the next 5 episodes, I will address and resolve all these questions and more as we cover the vast terrain of human history in its entirety. So grab a good hunting knife, don your best safari cap, man the bow, mind the gap, and steady on. Together we shall make the march of history.